Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Prep Life. Let's talk about the SV Bank. SV Bank, Silicon Valley Bank, and its total collapse. Just got intel from a buddy of mine named Will. Let me read you some of the stuff that he sent me. This is all cool because a lot of the stuff that I start posting about or storing about on social media, a lot of my buddies who watch this, who are kind of in the mix, they have hedge funds, they have businesses, they're in the mix of things. They know the inside scoop. I got a text from Will who says, the Ross rant, this is from Joel Ross, which is a special report. Most of you are wondering, how did two major banks suddenly go under? SVB was taken down by the state first. It was not insolvent. It had a liquidity problem due to grossly negligent risk management. They held a large portfolio of long-term treasuries against a liability of on-demand deposits. This is called duration mismanagement. The risk manager, if you can call it that, was based in London and identified as a queer woman of color interested in making LGBTQ people feel safe. I mean, this isn't like speculative. This is fact. Let me say that again. The risk manager, if you can call it that, was based in London and identified as a queer woman of color interested in making LGBTQ people feel safe. Now, that, as it stands alone, isn't a bad thing necessarily, but when you look at it in its totality, where a bank is focused on these type of issues instead of banking, note the job is to make the bank safe from risk. This is, however, California woke ideology gone mad. The bank also had a fund of $5 billion to fund making the world a better place. They had a fund of $5 billion to fund making the world a better place, but they couldn't provide the people that went to their bank any more capital because they oversold the capital. Like $42 billion, according to CNN, was taken out in one day because of the post or the tweets and the combination of that and group chats saying to get the money out because a lot of people saw this coming. And then when that happened, $42 billion in one day, that left them $1 billion in deficit, like in the negative. And they supposedly were in charge of $750 billion of people's funds. Now, this is not the job of a bank, number one, but it gets even better. Recently, it was just tweeted, actually today, a couple hours ago, it was just tweeted by Charlie Kirk. Silicon Valley Bank gave $73 million, actually $73,450,000 to the BLM movement and related causes. I'll read you the deets because that's important here. This is real from the WSJ, Wall Street Journal, why SVB failed. Besides 91% of their board being independent and 45% women, they also have one black, one LGBTQ plus sign, whatever, and two veterans. I'm not saying 12 white men would have avoided this mess, but the company may have been distracted by diversity demands. Because when you're more focused on diversity than you are the right people for the job, then you get the wrong people for the job, and then you fail. So here's an important lesson for companies in trouble. On Thursday, Mr. Becker told everyone to stay calm. Becker's the CEO of SVB. That never works. Ever since Kevin Bacon's character in Animal House told everyone, remain calm, all is well, as chaos ensued. Was there regulatory failure? Perhaps. SVB was regulated like a bank, but looked more like a money market fund. Then it's in its proxy statement, the SVB notes that besides 91% of their board being independent and 45% being women, they also have one black, one LGBTQ plus, and two vets. I'm not saying 12 white men would have got this done, but the company may have been distracted. Management screwed up interest rates, underestimated customer withdrawals, hired the wrong people, and failed to sell equity. You are really only allowed one mistake. More proved fatal. Was management hubristic, delusional, or incompetent? Sometimes there's no difference between the three. I agree with this, and it seems like this is a train wreck, and a lot of people are like, well, it's no big deal. It's just a bank. Well, it was two banks in total, and this, if you haven't read the headlines, most banks in America go through checks and balances, assurances, Because they're regulated by the federal government. I mean, your bank is insured for up to $250,000 of your money. But what does that mean? What does it mean when $750 billion in a bank are irresponsibly, lost, and the bank's now bankrupt because they're giving $5 billion to diversity? I don't know, because I'm not a bank guy. But what I will say is, in its totality, this is a sign and indication of things to come. One of the things that I started talking about recently is being responsible with your finances. But I don't just mean like paying off debt. In fact, I don't even recommend that you pay off debt, especially if you have a low interest rate. If you have a low interest rate and you're using the bank's money, in this case, and you could deploy that capital somewhere else that is going to grow money, that's better. So don't necessarily pay off all debt, because some debt is good. But also spend responsibly. Some of the things that I talk about in financial responsibility is diversify. Like, I want to see you diversify. I don't want to see you put all your eggs in one basket as everybody in SVB did. Well, a lot of people said SVB is just a small bank. It's the 16th largest bank in the country. It also had $750 billion and tanked after one day of $42 billion worth of withdrawals. Now, that's a lot. CNN is blaming Twitter, for example. But is that a lot, according to banks? No, it's not. So, it's just hedge funds and it's just people with a lot of money. No, it's not. A lot of it is people with small businesses that employ human beings. And this isn't just a shell game. These are small businesses trying to make payroll that aren't potentially able to make payroll. But wait, there's more. The more is they're always going to be bailed out. You know why? Because you pay taxes. That's why. Because now when somebody makes a mistake, despite their reckless spending to BLM and other organizations, despite that spending, they're going to bail out these banks, right? They're going to bail them out because they don't want to see businesses being hurt. It's one of my ideas of the reason why I think we're so involved in Ukraine and spending money on war. Look, if you spend money on war where the majority of the money that you're spending is actually going back into your economy because you're paying for the government contractors, you're paying for the military equipment that's going overseas, well, you're kind of keeping the government afloat. You're keeping the economy afloat because it looks good on paper. Because you could say, hey, man, the economy's doing well. We got jobs. There's tons of jobs. While tech's laying off tens of thousands of people, the government is employing people. If you didn't know it, the government is one of the biggest, it is the biggest employer on the face of the planet Earth. So if we look at the spending, we have to be involved in war, because if not, there's a big void. So what makes up for this void? I don't know, recklessness. And then when something happens like SVB fails, we have to pick up the tab on that. The taxpayer does. And that defeats our ability to get out of a recession because that adds to our inflation. Now, that adds to our national debt. And that's a significant issue because we are not, as politicians, as Americans electing politicians, responsible or responsibly spending our money in the right places. We love to spend money because even the tactic to boost an economy is spend more money because you want to boost the economy because it's hurting. You don't want to save money. You don't want to make the hard cuts because that looks bad, especially on your job numbers when you're trying to get reelected as a politician. This all sucks. Well, I for the first time am looking at the threshold for, the government bailing you out, which is $250,000, and looking at my accounts and going, where do I need to pull money out? I would rather have $10,000, $20,000, a life savings stuff in my mattress than sitting in a bank that is very irresponsible, that is on the verge of collapsing and breaking. And guys, when it starts to cascade, there's no turning back. It's like when it reaches the tipping point, there's no turning back on this. This is insanity. Some of the things that you could do, assets. This probably just get banned from YouTube by showing this. This is an asset. You know why? Because this never depreciates. We're always going to need these. I mean, I almost said bin Laden. Wow. That just popped in my head when I thought about Biden. But Biden said, we come hell or high water, we need the assault weapons banned over the majority of the country's dead hands. That ain't happening. So just get it out of your head. Let me clue you into some things that are happening in the background while we're distracted. While we're distracted looking at this, look, it's a good distraction. I want you to multitask. I want you to chew bubblegum and walk at the same time. But let's talk about this little guy, which is SB, which is the bill proposed in Colorado, 168, the Gun Violence Victims Access to Justice and Firearm Industry Accountability Act. Are you shitting me? Let me say that again. SB 168, proposed in Colorado law, is the Gun Violence Victims Access to Justice and Firearm Industry Accountability Act, and is a Trojan horse bill. Most certainly it's a Trojan horse bill, because if you look out on the surface, you're like, victims, justice, firearm industries, accountability. I want to be part of that. I want to help because I want to hold somebody accountable. Well, here's the problem. The Brady campaign to reduce gun violence set up a frivolous lawsuit against an online retailer, parents of a victim suing the company for selling bulk ammunition, all legally. So now we're going after the people who sold the bulk ammunition, the company that sold the bulk ammunition, because it's their fault. It's not the guy who conducted the murders. If you're into this kind of thing, which is like you should be, right? You should be protecting your Second Amendment rights and be educated on it. Look at Colion Noir's last video where he talks about, who's that dude? I don't even like saying his name, so I'm not going to say his name on the air. But look at the last video. This I'll call him John. John is doing an interview, and he's using statistics to attack an Oklahoma congressman, or senator, and having a debate around the Second Amendment. And everything he says, as Colion Noir graciously lays it out, because he's not a dick about it, he's like laying out the proof. This is what the liberal media wants to do. This is what the liberal president and administration want to do. They want to take your guns, and they're going to, because they're doing it in your own backyard when you're not paying attention. This SB 168 also, the ammunition seller won the suit, and the Brady campaign left the family holding the legal bill because the judge threw it out. The judge was like, what are you talking about? You can't sue. This is all about trying to get your analytics up, boost your numbers, get your popularity flaring, and I'm not buying into it, and he threw it out. And the family had to pick up the bill. The law does way more than talk about who has to pay for a bad lawsuit. It redefines firearm industry to be anyone with any business relationship to manufacturing, shipping, distribution, retail, or marketing of guns, ammunition, components, and accessories. So if I did a video on my Patreon talking about a gun around a vehicle, and then somebody was killed in the state of Colorado with that same gun in and around a vehicle, well, I could be sued. And then they could hold me accountable because it's justice, accountability, not for me, but against the content that I put out. So you're talking about some subjective ideology here. It's all in the details. I'll continue. Any person who believes they are harmed by an industry member not having enough controls can now sue for it. They can sue anyone in the life cycle of products, manufacturing, marketing, sale, and ownership, even if someone in the chain breaks the law other than the end user. The bill is intended to reopen the floodgates of the Clinton-era lawsuits that resulted in bankruptcies of companies like Smith & Wesson. Smith & Wesson, one of my good buddies, Chad Robichaud, is working with Smith & Wesson, which is a great company. It's hard to be a firearms company when you're getting sued through frivolous lawsuits that are backed by the law because Congress and lawmakers in these states are passing these laws. The bill is intended to reopen the floodgates and to force companies to institute a gun control that are or be bankrupted by lawsuits. The controls will be what type of guns who can make, what they can make, what type of advertisement you can have, what type of gun content you can produce. You'll either be the gun industry that Gifford's anti-gun group wants, or you won't be in the gun industry at all. What can you do? Call the governor of Colorado and respectfully tell him what you think. Professionally. Don't tell him to F off, because you do that, you're just going to get blocked and deleted. You need to have the conversation, but you need to tell every single politician Every single one in every single state. Tell your politician, you don't want this to happen in Colorado because if it comes to your state, you won't stand for it. Look, this is how it's going to happen. Every single state's going to jump on the bandwagon while we're not paying attention, and the federal government is going to try to roll it out into a bill. And if we're not paying attention because we're focused on Ukraine, we're focused on a balloon flying across the country, all important issues, then we need to still pay attention to what's going on in our backyard. SB 168. If you live in Colorado and you're not virtue signaling the hell out of the data and what it's going to do all over social media, you're not doing due diligence. And you'll just lose it. You'll just lose it. All of these things mean more control. They want registration because they want to be able to take all your guns. They did it in Australia. They did it in Canada. They've done it throughout the United States. If they do it here, that would be a problem. It would be a problem for me and most law-abiding citizens. I promise you that. I promise you that. All right, moving on. SB 168. Don't forget that, please, guys. Moving on. Today, we just had a circumstance that took place straight overhead in according to U.S. European Command, a Russian fighter jet collided with the rear propeller of an unmanned U.S. military drone over international waters over the Black Sea. This happened, forcing the U.S. to bring the drone down off the coast of Ukraine. The incident, which involved 2 Russian jets, was denounced as unsafe and unprofessional. What? Unsafe, according to the State Department, and unprofessional by the U.S. State Department. A spokesman called it a brazen violation of international law that led to the summoning of Russia's ambassador for a diplomatic meeting in Washington. The Russians claimed Tuesday that the drone was acting as an intruder and flying towards Russian borders. U.S. European Command, EUCOM, labeled the incident as dangerous and said in a statement it could lead to miscalculation and unintended escalation. What? We're in a proxy war with Russia. We've already escalated. Like we're flying drones. We're doing the things. It's already happening. So if World War III happens tomorrow, you shouldn't be surprised. The government will act surprised, but we're flying drones. We're proxy supporting the Ukrainians who are going to war. China's getting involved. And this is the thing. Like, we're going to see more of this happen. Like, the fact that Russian fighter pilots ran their plane, or however it happened. I mean, they were antagonizing the unmanned aerial vehicle, which is I think it was a Reaper. I think they name it here. It says MQ-9 Reaper. So that Reaper is not flying around because it's going on a world tour for Instagram. This is providing direct intelligence from the battlefield of Russia to kill Russians. So you think it would be in Russia's best interest to kind of do something about that? Not to back the Russians, but like, are we surprised by this? Like, I love how the national media and EUCOM and the State Department are surprised by this unprofessional and reckless behavior. Like, what? I'm surprised the Russians didn't shoot this shit down. Like, all of these things that are happening, and it's on the brink of world war, guys. These aren't like minor escalations. These aren't minor incursions that are happening in Yemen, right? This isn't like a podunk country that nobody cares about. This is happening on the border of Russia, a superpower that has nuclear weapons. Look, I support Ukraine. I do. I do not support just endlessly paying Ukraine hundreds of billions of American taxpayer dollars with no strategy and tactics in place. Like, I just don't. I'm sorry. If you're offended by that, then be offended. I've been to war. I've seen what war looks like, and I've seen what the military industrial complex, when it rolls the fat machine forward, there's no turning back. And that's what we're involved in. So when will we realize it? 20 years from now, when we pull out of Ukraine recklessly and abandon everybody like we did in Afghanistan? I mean, Jesus. This is insane, man. This is blowing my mind. Okay, let me move on. This weekend, I had Greg Anderson and Greg Lappin, 2 Brazilian black belts that have a checkmate Gracie lineage. They are Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioners that own their own dojos in the Pacific Northwest and Louisiana, and they came in. We had a business meet, and the conclusion we came to is Fieldcraft Jiu-Jitsu needs their legitimacy, their expertise to build Fieldcraft Jiu-Jitsu, starting in Salt Lake City. It's going to be around Draper, potentially in Provo, and evolving throughout the country. We're going to do jiu-jitsu in the background with simunitions and preparedness training, the retail up front, Black Rifle Coffee Shop in the corner. All of that with a gun store is going to be the model that we expand throughout the country. We're taking over. We're going to provide an adult YMCA in your backyard that makes you more resilient and more prepared. But there's more. We're going to include training for women and children. That is going to be a profound focus. Me and Andy Stumpf started a newsletter to talk about some of these things, including working with Leah Stumpf, his wife, and building this program out. I talked to Greg Lappin and Greg Anderson about standing this program up. They might even be the Brazilian black belts that literally train here in our backyard. At a minimum, they're going to be coming around and making the workshop rounds and making sure that we are provided with a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt that is at the top of the game. We need the right person. I'm looking forward to bringing them in. Jiu-Jitsu is the foundation. We did some content. We did some pummeling of Mike Glover, which is great. I'll take the pummeling. Guys, I'm 240 pounds. I'm a big boy, 6'1", 240. I went against Greg Lappin, who is like 175 pounds soaking wet, super fit dude, but he's a Brazilian black belt. He tapped me out. He tapped me out. People said on YouTube, yeah, but if there was punching involved, look, I box, I do Muay Thai. I grew up doing that as a kid. So does Greg. So that fight would have ended in me being destroyed one way or another. And I'm not afraid of saying that. Like, I'm saying that because, look, I've done jiu-jitsu on and off my whole life. I was belted in Machado. But when I say that out loud, what I want you to understand is that was 20 years ago. I've nickel and dimed a Brazilian jiu-jitsu career, and that's not enough when you go against a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt who's been doing it for 20 years for Greg Anderson and 10 years for Greg Lappin, on and off every single day. Like, these guys are monsters. They're fit, they're resilient, they're tough as nails, and they could tap dudes out. They could choke people out. That is awesome. That's what I want our community as a baseline to be. Like, I think it's cool that you train with me and do gunfighter pistol and self-defense courses. We're rolling out personal security again, hard in the paint this year. That's awesome. But if you show up and you're morbidly obese or you're out of shape, that's not acceptable. The start point is jiu-jitsu. Not saying you can't come and train with me if you are, but let's build a baseline of fitness through jiu-jitsu, making our families better. And that's what we're going to do. Also, look at this. Check this thing out. This is a first. I just showed my Patreon. If you're interested in my Patreon, it's patreon.com/Mike Glover. I just dropped this and showed the guys this, but this is our new Fieldcraft Cloud Defensive partnership. This is the partnership. This is anodized in VS17 orange or Hunter orange. What's special about this? Well, it's anodized. It makes it more resilient. But nothing else besides Cloud Defensive is awesome. We wanted to partner with a good company. We wanted to do our own line, do some education with low light, no light, which we teach throughout the country. And I'm proud to work with these guys. Let me drop in some notes here. Hey, I want to say big shout out to the roofers who just came. The roofers who just came from Zeal Roofing out in Draper. Epic dudes. These people are amazing. One, family-owned business. They just came out here and they helped get all the ice off my roof. And I want to support family-owned businesses. They have a shop down in Texas where their mom's running it, and their brother just moved up into Alaska. Talking about a small world, this guy shows me a picture of his wife's sister's husband, and he's a contractor, or he's a State Department guy named Will. Big shout out to Will. Big Will is what we used to call him, who worked with me in Libya. His story that he remembers is bringing me grenades when I was out in Libya one night. We spent time together breaking bread, drinking beer, and he was the regional security officer, and it was a great time. But small worlds that we live in. But guess what? That started over conversation, breaking bread, shaking hands. Hey, where's your family from? Where are you from? We need to get back to basics. One of the things that we're doing, rolling out all of the preparedness seminars, which you can find on fullcraftsurvival.com, is doing these type of events, including North Carolina. Kevin Estella is locked down in North Carolina doing all the survival things. We're even talking about doing courses there and bringing courses to Puerto Rico. So if you're Puerto Rican, it's going to be awesome. Also, if you guys will follow on Instagram, Zeal Roofing, that's Zebra Echo Alpha Lima Zeal _roofing on IG, that would be pretty cool. Support small businesses, guys. Also want to get to some notes that Kevin Estella sent me. Kevin Estella, who's taken on a whole bunch of work in survival because we're ramping up all things survival for a preparedness app. He's got a lot of stuff going on. One of those things is, I just skimmed by something, but I'll get back to that. The next 90 days, Kate Smith's edible and medicinal plant class on April 15th. Like, we have Kate Smith, an expert on everything plant-based. She's doing an edible and medicinal plants class on April 15th in North Carolina, emergency medical treatment on May 13th, and civilian survival school on May 27th to the 28th. You can find all that on philcraftsurvival.com. Like how I did that there. Hey, big shout out to my buddy Dave Wood, Virtus Outdoors group, VOG. Found out he's in the hospital. Supposedly his heart stopped for 20 plus minutes. They put him on a ventilator. He's off the ventilator and he's making recovery. Dude, I hope you're good, man. Big shout out to you. And also my HR rep who's going through some serious issues, Sarah, with her mother. Hope your mother feels better as well. Lastly, I just got a date for Josh Noss Ham Radio Crash Course. If you're into ham radio, on Philcraft Survival's YouTube channel, we did a whole bunch of content on ham radio. There's going to be more. So I just hit him up on April something. We're doing a date very soon. I'm saying this because if you're into ham radio, you're about to get some content dropped on your head. Survival radio tips, family communications plans, and mobility communications are the three major topics that we're talking about. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be rad. Also, if you didn't know, AmericanContingency.com is our community group. Make sure you go over there and give them some love and tie into the ham radio network, because that's one of the best parts of American Contingency is you can build out your comms plan with your community. Guys, I appreciate you. Hope you have a good week. I will have a breakout of this for Friday's content as well. We're doing 2 of these a week, and when the app drops June 6th, the same day my book drops, we'll be doing a show every single day on the app, which is going to be great. Appreciate you guys. Have a good day.